Hello and welcome along. Hope you guys are all doing well. We're back in Microsoft Flight Simulator for another video in the PMDG 737-800, and today we're going to be discussing how and when we should start descending from our cruise using the vertical speed mode. And we're currently on a short hop in the US from Indianapolis over to Chicago O'Hare International. So with that in mind, let's hop inside and get started. So here we are in the flight deck then, and let's take a look at our charts and brief our descent. We're currently cruising at an altitude of 28,000 feet on an inbound course of 296 degrees to a waypoint called Vik, which is approximately where we'll start our descent down on a course of 302 degrees, where we'll pick up our star down into O'Hare International. And as I mentioned in the intro, the whole purpose of today's video is to demonstrate the vertical speed mode rather than VNAV that we'd normally use. So yeah, we will be using vertical speed for our descent today. So I've manually added a couple of altitude constraints into the FMC. So if we take a look at those, I'd like to be at 10,000 feet when we arrive at Pink. So if we take a look at the charts and just scroll up, there's Pink there, so I want to be at 10,000 feet at Pink, and then secondly I want to be at 5,000 feet when we arrive at Possum, which is basically the final waypoint before we vector ourselves out and back to land on our runway. Right, so how do we decide when to start our descent using vertical speed? Well, there's a couple of little tricks we can do and a simple little equation. So if we come down to the FMC and select our runway, which is 10 Charlie, and we add a fix there for that runway, and if we pop up to the MCP and just check, so we're currently at 28,000 feet, so we're going to take that figure 28 and multiply it by 3 for our 3-degree glide slope, which gives us a figure of 84, which basically means we've got 84 track miles to descend to our runway. So let's pop back down to our fix page then and add in a fix ring at 84 miles. And this is just to give us a little visual reminder on our nav display when to start our descent. So let's take a look at the nav display and change our range. So there we go, there's our fix at 84 miles from the runway. And in fact, if we take a closer look just above our fix, we can see the green top of descent marker. So our little equation is, roughly speaking, in the ballpark. And it very much is an approximation. There are other things to consider, like for example, at the moment we've got a 19 knot headwind, we may have a tailwind. So whilst it's not 100% accurate, it does get us in a decent position to start our descent, which we can monitor as we go. Right, so here we are then, just about to pass over our 84 mile fix, which is our cue to begin our descent. So up to the MCP then, and let's wind in our first altitude constraint. And if you remember, I want it to be at 10,000 feet by the time we pass over Pink. So let's wind 10,000 into the window, just keep going, all the way down. And there we go, so let's hit vertical speed, and then we can wind in our rate of descent. And we'll start off with, let's go 1,000 feet per minute, and we'll just see how the plane reacts to that to begin with. So that's 1,000 feet. And if we take a closer look at our nav display, we can see our vertical deviation bar in the bottom right corner. And the idea is to keep the magenta diamond in the middle. That's bang on profile basically. So let's see how 1,000 foot per minute affects that. And as you can see, we're already 100 feet nearly too high. So 1,000 feet per minute isn't going to be enough to get us down on our 3-degree glide slope. So we want to see our 10,000 feet marker on our nav display around about our waypoint at Pink. So let's increase our rate of descent to around about 1,800 feet per minute and see what that does. And I'm still not seeing the marker, so let's try increasing it a little bit more. Let's go 2,000 feet per minute, and there we go. We can see the green banana coming down in the top of the nav display. and the aim of the game is to keep that sort of lined up with our waypoint at pink, and that means the plane's happy that it can reach that altitude by that point basically. And we're still not going to quite make 10,000 at pink, so another little trick we can do is if we check our ground speed there in the top left, it's 447 knots, so if we divide that by 2, that gives us 220, and times that by 10, that gives us a rate of descent of 2,200 feet per minute, and that's another good way of maintaining the 3-degree glide slope. And our green banana is now winding back to our waypoint at pink, so the plane's happy it can meet our altitude of 10,000 feet by that point. So that's all looking good. We're still about 500 feet or so high on our profile, but I'm not too concerned about that. We can rectify that a little bit later. Okay, so I'm going to add another fix at this point, just so we can keep monitoring our descent. So we previously had a fix at 84 miles when we wanted to descend from 28,000 feet. So if we come sort of halfway from there and do a fix at 42 miles, so let's drop in 42 as another fix, and that just gives us another point of reference on our nav display. So when we're pretty much passing over that 42 mile fix, we know we're going to need to be around about the 14,000 feet mark. So we'll just monitor that as and when we get to it. And we're actually still a touch high on our vertical deviation. It's still showing 700 feet. So I think we'll just increase our rate of descent a touch to 2,300 feet per minute, just to see if we can get ourselves back on profile a bit better. And if we look at the vertical deviation again, that's starting to move back in the right direction to get us back on profile again, so I'm happy with that. Right, so we're just about to pass over our second fix at 42 miles, and if you remember, we said we wanted to be around about 14,000 feet at that point, so we're currently about 16,500. So again, as I said earlier, it's not an exact science, but that's close enough for me. And if we take a look at our vertical deviation again, we're only sort of 300 feet too high on the profile at the moment, so that's all looking pretty good. And we've been pretty much maintaining our 2,300 feet per minute rate of descent. And if we take a look at the nav display again in the top left corner, our ground speed has now come down to about 400 knots. So again, let's divide that by 2 and times it by 10, so that gives us 2,000 feet per minute. And the closer we get to the ground, we'll keep winding that rate of descent back just to maintain our 3-degree glide slope. You can see now we've reduced it to 2,000 feet per minute. The green banana is pushed back up towards our waypoint of pink, so that's fine. Okay, then it's about time to just double check our charts again and just monitor our progress. So over to the EFB, and if we just zoom in a little bit, we can see we're just approaching our waypoint at Clouseau, and then we'll pass through Cato and arrive at pink, bang on 10,000 feet hopefully. So an important thing to remember when you're using vertical speed mode is to manage the energy of the plane efficiently. It can get away from you a little bit when you're descending quite quickly, so let's start winding the speed back. What have we got in the FMC? Let's go down to 240 knots, just as we approach our 10,000 feet constraint. So we'll wind that all the way down to 240. And as we're now approaching our 10,000 feet, let's wind in our next altitude of 5,000, which is where we need to be by Possum. So let's wind 5,000 into the window, 5,000 set. and our ground speed is also coming down quite nicely now, so we can reduce our rate of descent a little bit more. So let's go 1,800 feet per minute, and that's us through 10,000. So let's put our landing lights on, runway turn off lights on, and engine starter mode's continuous, seatbelt signs on, and a quick bong for the cabin crew. And just monitoring our nav display again, we can see the green banana is going to make our constraint quite easily, so probably reduce our rate slightly further. Let's go 1,700 feet per minute. And there we go, I can see O'Hare International just in front of us there. So basically we're going to turn out left and then vector ourselves out and back. Look at that, that is cool. Okay, so we're just about down where we need to be now, so let's reduce our rate now all the way back to 1,000 feet per minute, I think, just to smooth out the final part of the descent. And our vertical deviation is saying we're about 1,500 feet low at the moment, but that's okay. Basically, there's a stepped descent on the final approach into O'Hare, and we're going to be picking up that around about halfway along at about 4,500 feet. So that's all fine. And we're just starting to turn in left now, which will take us to our outbound leg, where we'll then have to vector ourselves back onto our final approach. And I think I'm going to leave it about there for today. So there we have it, as O'Hare International passes right underneath the wing. That concludes today's video on how we manually manage our descent all the way from cruise down to our final approach using vertical speed mode. Hope you enjoyed the video, found it useful. If you did, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.